Oh, yeah. Is it Saturday already? Have we made it through probably the craziest week of Star Wars news we've had in decades? Kathleen Kennedy has officially stepped down as president of Lucasfilm. Dave Filoni and Brennan have taken over as co-presidents. And this all comes in the same week of crazy Ahsoka Season 2 leaks, of Star Wars Starfighter having lightsaber duels. We've just had the most insane week for Star Wars news, and the cherry on top of all of it is the exit interview for Kathleen Kennedy gave us updates on 12. Yeah, that's right. 12 different Star Wars movies. My God, do we have a lot to talk about today and not a lot of time. So without further ado, let's dive into all of it. What's up, everybody? How's it been doing on this fine Saturday afternoon? Wow. Do we have a lot to talk about today? We had a live stream on Thursday. However, that only being 2 days ago, a lot has changed. Because after Thursday's live stream, probably by about 4 hours, the enormous, groundbreaking news came out that Kathleen Kennedy is officially out. This has been something that people have been speculating about for, years. We've been talking about Kathleen Kennedy stepping down as president or being fired for at least 2 years on this channel alone. And so many people have been talking about it for a lot longer than that. So, it's official. It's finally official. Now, we'll talk about Dave Filoni, whether he was the correct choice or not, but I gotta start with this. It really pisses me off to see just absolute fake reports to try to tear down the guy that was made president less than 48 hours ago, where you're seeing reports come out that say that Dave Filoni disliked, hated Andor. And you know what happened just a mere, hours after that report was made? They were claimed to be false allegations against Dave Filoni. But you know what happened? Nobody saw the fact that they were false. And everybody and their moms ran with the article that Dave Filoni hates Andor. So it didn't even take 24 hours. It didn't even take a day before people started crapping on the new president. And what are you going to do? That's just the current state of Star Wars as we live in the fandom of the greatest galaxy of all time. So, just wanted to throw that out there. That article from The Wrapped saying that Dave Filoni doesn't like Andor is absolutely false. He has spoken out many times about how much he loves the series of Andor, and it's really, really just stupid. It's just stupid. It's really, really dumb that just because he gets named the president of Lucasfilm, and because there's this portion of the Star Wars fandom that has to hate on everything, even if it's good news, even if it's great news, they still have to hate on everything, so they find any possible string to pull about how to make Dave Filoni look like the bad guy. And guess what? It got thrown right back in their faces, and they look like idiots. And now their reputation is completely spoiled, and we get to sit here and talk about the greatness that is the future of Star Wars, how great Kathleen Kennedy's reign was as president, and how awesome 2026 is going to be for Star Wars fans, and yet those people's reputation's in the toilet. What a wonderful day. Okay, let's start this live stream, though, the only way we know how, by saying hi to everybody in the chat. Shall we? Yeah, I got a little heated there, but it has to happen. Just, throwing out stupid lies for no reason is just a whole lot of hoopla. But let's say hi to everybody in the chat. John Groom, how we doing? Cleve Morris in the house. Starship 66, what is up? Jason, how we doing? Jared in the building. Holly, what is up? Fearless, how we doing? Javier, what is up? JC, how we doing? Steven in the building. Steve, what is up? Chris, how we doing? Kyler, how we doing? That Dave that loves Star Wars, great name. What is up? Dustin Kennedy, how we doing? Ian, what is up? Lobo, how we doing? Mando United in the building. Darth Plagueis lives, how we doing? Sci-Fi Dude, what is up? Okay, if I missed you, you know the deal. Just yell at me in the chat. Let's give everybody a nice little,
Hello there. General Kenobi.
Okay, so of course we have to start with the Kathleen Kennedy of it all. She has officially stepped down. Now, some people have been saying, oh, she was fired, she's completely gone. No, that's not the case. She has stepped down from being president and will go back to being a producer. So she will be producing on the upcoming Star Wars movies. She's not gone forever. She's not sailing into the sunset. She is just going back to producing. And thankfully, that's what's happening, because if she was just going into the sunset, we would have never gotten the reports on these insane 12 movies. But we'll get to that in one sec. Let's start with the official article from StarWars.com talking about Kathleen Kennedy, talking about Dave Filoni and Lynwen Brennan. Let's start there. Let's do it. Okay. Actually, before we even do that, let's start with the poll. Let's start it with the poll. We have been talking about who should and who will replace Kathleen Kennedy for years. So the question I have for you, chat, is did they make the correct decision? Because we've been talking about it. Should they bring in an outside person? Should it be Jon Favreau? Should it be Dave Filoni? Should it be this guy? Should it be that guy? Should it be this girl? Should it be that girl? We've been talking about all these different circumstances on who should be the next president of Lucasfilm. Is this the correct option? Tell me in the chat, and while you do, let's put up this poll. Do you think Dave Filoni and Lynwen Brennan are the correct choices for co-presidents of Lucasfilm? Yes or no? What do we think? I'll give you my take real quick, and then we'll read this article. It could not have been any better. If they brought in somebody from the outside, they don't know Star Wars. They don't know what they're doing. These are two people who have been with the company for over 20 years. One guy who's literally been dubbed the apprentice to George Lucas. And he still gets to make Star Wars content because they did the co-president role, where now you have Lynwen in charge of the business side and Dave in charge of the creative side. Perfection. Could not have come up with a better choice on my own. And obviously, that's why I'm not in charge of Lucasfilm. But could not have done it better myself. It is the perfect choice. But tell me what you think. Tell me what you think in the chat while we read this article. Let's do this. Put that over there. Put this over there. Lucasfilm and Walt Disney Studios announced leadership transition. Lucasfilm announced today that after 14 years of leading the studio, President Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down from her role. Kathleen Kennedy will return to a full-time producing. Again, she is not fired. She's not done forever. She will still be producing, including the studio's upcoming feature films, The Mandalorian and Grogu, and Star Wars Starfighter. Dave Filoni, who worked closely with creator George Lucas to build the Lucasfilm animation department on Star Wars The Clone Wars and helped launch Star Wars live-action series alongside Jon Favreau on The Mandalorian, will take creative leadership of the company as president and chief creative officer, and Lynwen Brennan will serve as co-president. So this sentence, this paragraph here alone is the perfect description as to why Dave is the perfect choice. We'll get to Lynwen in a second, but Dave alone not only kickstarted and developed the first Star Wars animated series, but he also kickstarted and helped launch the first ever live action Star Wars series. So, yes, Star Wars was introduced to us by George in 1977 as a movie franchise. It has moved to animation. It has moved to live action series, and it is so much more now. And the fact that the new president, co-president, is I guess he wasn't solely, doing it alone. He worked with George Lucas to create the animation portion of Lucasfilm, and worked with Jon Favreau to make the first ever live action series. However, he was involved with both of those things and has been for animation the last 20 years and for live action the last 6. Their close collaboration and more than 30 years of combined senior executive experience will carry Lucasfilm into the next chapter of storytelling, with a strong foundation in creative vision and operational leadership guiding the studio forward. Hang on. Actually, let's get to that super chat right now. Let's do it now so I don't forget about it. Darth Plagueis with a very generous $5 holla. I appreciate that quite a bit. Says the Dave Filoni era has begun, and 2026 is the perfect year to start. Which project this year do you think will be the most successful? Well, before I answer that question, and you guys tell me in the chat, what project do you think in 2026 will be the most successful? You got Maul, Shadow Lord, Ahsoka Season 2, The Mandalorian and Grogu, and hopefully some others. I mean, you got video games and books and everything, but those are the big 3. 2026 is the year of Dave Filoni. Not just the fact that he's become the co-president of the goddamn company, but Maul, Shadow Lord is an animated series that he is heavily involved in. It's also an animated series, and we just went over how important animation is to Star Wars and how he and George were the ones who created the department. So there's that. The Mandalorian and Grogu, he's an executive producer. He and John teamed up to make that universe happen, that Mandoverse happen. So he's involved with the animated series this year. He's involved with the movie, the first movie in 7 years this year. And he's writing and directing, or directing some, but writing Ahsoka Season 2, which also comes out this year. So it's not just the year of Dave because he got the promotion. It's the year of Dave because he's heavily involved in every single project that comes out this year. It's not like last year where he's not that involved in the creation of Andor, or the year before he's not that involved in The Acolyte. He was an executive producer on Skeleton Crew, but still. This year is all Dave Filoni. All of it he's involved in, which is great. So yeah, it's absolutely the year of Dave Filoni, and it's the perfect year to kickstart him off into success. Because you could have started him off in 2023. Was it 3? 2024, where you had The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. One of the most divisive Star Wars projects of all time, in Skeleton Crew, which didn't really garner a big a viewership because there was no legacy characters. It wasn't really connected to much. Other than Jude Law, there wasn't really a pull to that show. Granted, it's a great show and everybody should watch it. It's extremely underrated, but there wasn't a big pull to that show. They could have set him up with a horrible year of Star Wars content that just does not get the fans engaged. Nope. They chose 2026, the year that's most likely set up for the most amount of success in the last 6 years, since 2020. Since we got The Mandalorian Season 2 and The Clone Wars Season 7 in the same year. 2026 is the most likely for success. Granted, it could all be a failure. It could all be horrible. It could all be a disaster. But that, hopefully, will not be the case. But yes, I agree with you. 2026 is the perfect year. Now let's keep going. Let's keep it going. So here's what Dave Filoni had to say about this promotion. My love for storytelling was shaped by the films of Kathleen Kennedy and George Lucas. I never dreamed I would be privileged to learn the craft of filmmaking from both of them. Yeah, I mean, we do talk about him being the apprentice to George Lucas, but Kathleen Kennedy has been a producer since the, I guess, 70s, and has produced on some incredible movies. So learning underneath George Lucas and now Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni, I mean, he's the student of all students. He says, from Rey to Grogu, Kathleen has overseen the greatest expansion in Star Wars storytelling on screen that we've ever seen. The last 14 years, we've gotten far more content in Star Wars than the first 30. Now, you can argue about whether it's better content or not, and that's, fully up to your debate, but you can't deny that it's the biggest expansion in all of Star Wars, at least on-screen storytelling. I'm incredibly thankful for Kathy, George, Bob Iger, and Alan Bergman for their trust and opportunity to lead Lucasfilm in this new role, doing a job I truly love. May the Force be with you. This is the first time we've heard from our fearless leader, Dave Filoni. Round of applause for Dave Filoni. Okay, and here's what Lynwen Brennan had to say. Now, a lot of people have been hearing this name, and I can't lie to you guys. I said the same thing. Who the hell is Lynwen Brennan? My exact question. This article does explain it, and I mean, just further proves that we are in great hands. So this is what she had to say. Lucasfilm has played such a meaningful part in my life, says Miss Brennan. It's a community of inspiring storytellers with a rebel spirit like no other, and I am honored to join Dave Filoni in leading us forward. I have been so fortunate to learn from George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, and Alan Bergman, and the unwavering faith in Dave's creative vision for the next chapter is in this storied studio's legacy. Easy for me to say. We'll get into, all right, let's just talk about this. So, Dave Filoni, this does, it goes into that stuff, but I got something better than that. Let's see. I got something better. Dave Filoni's journey to becoming president. In 2005, 21 years ago, joined the company as George Lucas's apprentice, so to speak, and began developing the Clone Wars as the Clone Wars' showrunner. In 2008, he made his directorial debut with the Clone Wars animated movie, which, well, that, went very poorly. I mean, it's just a Clone Wars episode in movie form. Then he oversaw the Clone Wars from 2008 to 2012, 2014 to 18. Rebels went to 18, not 16, but he oversaw Star Wars Rebels. Then he was hired to lead all of Lucasfilm animation in 2016. In 2019, made his live-action directorial debut in The Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 1, also co-creating the series with Jon Favreau. In 2020, promoted to Executive Creative Director. In 2023, hired as Chief Creative Officer and ran his first live-action show with Ahsoka and oversaw all creative control of all Star Wars media. And 3 years later, is now hired as co-president of Lucasfilm. So you can really see, especially with this graphic right here, this list right here, how he's just slowly but surely, and don't call him Shirley, moved up the ladder, or I guess in this instance, down the ladder, up the ladder slowly, learning from George how to make animation and tell stories in Star Wars, learning from Jon Favreau on how to make live-action content, and going on to do all of those things by himself, make his own animated series, make his own live-action series. And long has he been groomed for this, to quote the late great Darth Maul. Long has he been groomed for this role, much like Anakin as Darth Vader. I guess that's a bad analogy. It makes him seem like a villain, but, the point still gets across, I think. It still gets across. It still gets across, I think. So, this goes on to just tell you what he did. Clone Wars, Rebels, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, all that greatness. Sure. And, yeah, he's helping. He's executive producer on The Mandalorian and Grogu, which debuts in theaters May 22nd. So here's where people are like, who the hell is Lynwen Brennan? And this perfectly describes who she is, what her history is with Lucasfilm, and all that greatness. So take a look at this. Lynwen Brennan has been with Lucasfilm since 1999, since the prequel trilogy, since before Disney bought the company. Under George Lucas, worked under George, I guess, for 13 years. Yeah. She began her tenure with Industrial Light and Magic, where she rose through the ranks and became the leader of Industrial Light and Magic in 2009 after 10 years with the company. She was appointed general manager of Lucasfilm in 2015, I guess 6 years later, and president and general manager of Lucasfilm Business in 2024. Again, to set up that business side of things, where she eventually becomes co-president 2 years later. During her tenure, she has guided the company through transformative technology shifts with a clear strategic vision and commitment to innovation. And her industry leadership has been recognized with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Visual Effects Society and the honor of Commander, of the most excellent order of the British Empire. Holy crap. I did not know that. But all that to say, she's been with the company for quite some time. Talk about having the perfect duo, one on the business side, one on the creative side, who have both been with the company for over 20 years, who have both worked under Kathleen Kennedy and George Lucas. Both worked under, it was just a, George Lucas's company and under the Disney brand. People who have experienced both. That's a big deal. It's actually a huge deal. It goes on to talk about Kathleen Kennedy's legacy and leadership and all that, and we can talk about that too. But what I think is more important is what Kathleen Kennedy had to say about the movies. Now, let's take a second round of applause for Kathleen Kennedy. I know this sounds absolutely insane to maybe many of you, but Kathleen has been the president of Lucasfilm for the last 14 years. And in that time, think about some of the greatness that we have laid our eyes upon as Star Wars fans. From movies, now granted, you might hate the sequels, that's fully up to you. Some people absolutely love the sequels. Again, that's for your own interpretation. Hang on one second.
This is where the fun begins.
But personally, I really love The Force Awakens. Either way, I think Solo is extremely underrated, and Rogue One is one of my top 3 Star Wars movies of all time. Rogue One. So she made 5 Star Wars movies. She also she didn't make them, but under her tenure as president, she got made Star Wars Rebels, The Mandalorian. I'm just talking about my personal favorite, projects. Star Wars Rebels, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Andor, Tales, The Bad Batch, Clone Wars Season 7. I'm forgetting some big ones here, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. Either way, peak on peak on peak on peak on peak. Over the last 14 years, we've been eating good as Star Wars fans, contrary to, what some people may believe. The sequel trilogy, yes, very divisive. I'm not denying that. The Acolyte, although I loved it, very, very divisive. Sure, I didn't mention either of those. I'm just talking about the peak of all peaks. And without Kathleen Kennedy in control, that might never have happened. George Lucas could have sold the company to Disney, put some imbecile, a little harsh, but imbecile in charge, and we could have gotten nothing for the last 14 years. Absolute garbage for the last 14 years. And yet, no. Kathleen Kennedy provided us with some incredible Star Wars content. So, yeah, let's never forget it. I know we give all the credit to Dave Filoni. We give all the credit to Jon Favreau. We give all the credit to Tony Gilroy's of the world. And they deserve credit too. But let's not forget the person who put them in that position. Let's not forget the person who's in charge of the company at that time. And that was Kathleen Kennedy. So huge round of applause to Kathleen Kennedy for her tenure as president of Lucasfilm. And now we look forward to the future. And with that future, we have 12 updates on movies for Star Wars. Thanks to Kathleen Kennedy. So let's talk about this. Kathleen Kennedy sat down with an exit interview with Deadline. And I got a huge shout out to Deadline because you guys suck. No, I'm kidding. There's just a shit ton of advertisements on their websites, and it really pisses me off. So if every 10 seconds there's an advertisement that pops up, it's Deadline's fault. Okay. So a shift in the force at Lucasfilm. Kathleen Kennedy's exit interview. It's still crazy. We're sitting here on January 17th, 2026, reading the exit interview for Kathleen Kennedy. Honestly, something I never thought I would say. Just never thought. We've been talking about this happening for years and years and years, and it finally happened. There you go. On a rainy London day in December, not 2 hours after wrapping Star Wars Starfighter with director Sean Levy and a cast headed by Ryan Gosling, Kathleen Kennedy was ready to discuss the long-in-the-works transition of Lucasfilm. So literally 2 hours after wrapping film on Star Wars Starfighter, she's like, I'm out of here. She's handing the reins over to her long-time lieutenants. The Disney division will be run by Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni. And the business side of things, is Lynwen Brennan, a sharp Welsh executive who has been Lucasfilm's executive vice president and general manager after 16 years at ILM and has been with the company since 1999. Kennedy has been getting them ready for a couple years as she plots a return to her first love, producing. I'm sure after 14 years of being the president, taking all the backlash and hate from Star Wars fans for over a decade, it would get old pretty quickly, I think. So going back to what she loved, which was producing and, of course, making Star Wars movies. Let's scroll down here. Let's get to the good stuff. This just goes into what she's done. You know, we know all that. We've seen all of it. Producing on E.T. and all these great things, you know, the Star Wars movies and, yeah, all that great. All right. Okay, blah, blah, blah. We talked about all that. They talk about AI for a while here, but I want to just get to the specific Star Wars stuff because they talk about, you know, Indiana Jones and everything. All right, yeah, here we go. So then they start to talk about Star Wars Starfighter. And this is pretty epic. So, Star Wars Starfighter. The question Deadline asks is you've just wrapped, your 6th film in the Star Wars universe, Star Wars Starfighter. Is that meant to be an ongoing theatrical series? What we've learned about Star Wars Starfighter is that it's a standalone movie starring Ryan Gosling. We now know there's going to be lightsaber duels, which is crazy. But it's supposed to be a standalone movie, and there is zero talk of there being a sequel. Well, until today. Kathleen Kennedy says this. It was envisioned as a single film. Sean Levy just made the experience so pleasant for everybody, and we found this 14-year-old kid out of Ireland, Flynn Gray, who has virtually no experience. That's always risky. Hanging a story so much on a child actor, you're not exactly sure how comfortable they're going to be. Flynn Gray turned out to be such a special kid. I've always said this, for the most part, specifically with Star Wars, but for the most part, they have found incredible children actors. The girl who plays Leia in Kenobi is like, I mean, come on. Incredible. Of course, Jake Lloyd as Anakin in The Phantom Menace. Great. I know there's more. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. Fantastic. Sean Levy, specifically, is coming off the backs of working on the biggest child actor show ever created, Stranger Things, where they have had, I don't know, 6. Is it 6? I guess. The 4 main kids, 11 max. At least 6 child actors who have become these incredible actors, and now they're in their 20s, but they were children actors at the time. So this guy has worked with child actors for a long, long time. So it's no surprise that they have found another good one in Flynn Gray. When you cast kids, a lot of it becomes about the parents. He has such great parents and got lucky there too. Not only was he there with Ryan Gosling, this movie is structured in a way that he has a kind of a new actor coming in every few weeks so that he is one-on-one with Matt Smith, Amy Adams, Aaron Pierre. Take a second to think about that. The way that they structured filming for this movie is a new actor comes in about every few weeks, and this character goes one-on-one with that character, or with that actor. Meaning, we knew that Matt Smith was only on set for a couple weeks. We knew that. But Amy Adams and Aaron Pierre were both only on set for a couple weeks. is this kid just being tossed around like something that gets tossed around? Is he just getting tossed around like a basketball, like a pigskin football? What is going on in this movie? Why is he just spending a couple weeks at a time with these big time actors in their seemingly large roles in this movie? What is happening? You tell me in the chat. And each one is so great to watch. It was so great to watch him because he would just get so excited by the actors that he got to work with. And it was like he's in the best university you could possibly be in. Very strange. I think that Matt Smith is going to be the overarching villain, but the fact that he only spends a couple weeks with him could mean this movie ends in disaster. And by that I mean Flynn Gray, Ryan Gosling loses the child to the bad guys in the end, which would be absolutely insane. Amy Adams is playing supposedly his mom and rumored to be a former Jedi. So it could be that she was only on set for a couple of weeks because they were filming the scene where they both get separated. And then Aaron Pierre, I have no idea. I don't know who he's playing, what he's playing, how he's playing, or why he's playing. But he was only on set for a couple of weeks and had some one-on-one scenes with Flynn Gray. The more you know. So a lot of cool information there when it comes to Starfighter. Now they go on to talk about AI there, blah, blah, blah. E.T., which is, of course, one of her first movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future, all this great stuff. Like, this is her lineup. Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Twister, Sixth Sense. Like, she's produced on all these movies. Continuing, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to Star Wars here. Blah-bitty, bloobity, blah. Bloobity, blabbity, blah. Blah, bloobity, bloobity, blue, blah. She goes on to talk about, actually, a lot of, about Alden Ehrenreich and Solo. A Star Wars story, which is pretty interesting, sort of explaining how it wasn't given the, I guess, chance that it was supposed to. Now, here we got some updates on some movies we haven't talked about in a really long time. So the Deadline interviewer asks this. Let's get to what the fans are eager to know, finally. The progress on films and series by filmmakers who've committed to putting in, 3 to 5 years? Rian Johnson, who of course made The Last Jedi, is supposed to be getting a trilogy. Hasn't happened yet. James Mangold getting Dawn of the Jedi, 25,000 years before anything. Has been sort of, in production for over 2 years. Simon Kinberg getting a trilogy. Taika Waititi getting a movie. Where are all those projects at? Now we get some answers. Where does Starfighter take place in the timeline? 5 years after the sequel trilogy. 5 years after the demise of Palpatine again. So in The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. So Kathleen Kennedy's response to that is, I got to tread a little bit carefully here, as per usual. James Mangold, and Mr. Willie Mon wrote an incredible script, meaning the script for Dawn of the Jedi has been written, which is awesome. But it is definitely breaking the mold, and it's on hold. So it's on hold for now. Dawn of the Jedi is on hold. And it breaks the mold because, it's 25,000 years before everything. It's the origins of the Jedi themselves. So that's going to be a while. Taika Waititi has turned in a script. The script for Taika Waititi's movie has been written. And Kathleen Kennedy says, I think it's hilarious and great. Nice. Let's not forget that Taika's already worked on Star Wars before with The Mandalorian too, so that's fantastic. It's not just any decision, especially when I've got a foot out the door, because she's no longer really making those decisions. Donald Glover for the Lando movie has turned in a script. These movies are written, people. They are written already. Okay, continuing. And as you have read, Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver have turned in a script written by Scott Burns, which, by the way, Lucasfilm spent the most amount of money ever on a script. for that Hunt for Ben Solo movie. That's what she's talking about here. Hunt for Ben Solo with Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver. And she goes on to say, it was just great. The idea for the Hunt for Ben Solo was just, in a word, great. Anything's a possibility if somebody's willing to take a risk. Now, this has sort of been seen as Kathleen Kennedy taking a shot at Disney. And honestly, growing up is realizing that maybe the complaints that so many Star Wars fans have had over the years about Kathleen Kennedy and how these projects are just not getting made. For example, Rogue Squadron, the REY movie has been on hold for all these years. The Rangers of the New Republic, the Hunt for Ben Solo, all these projects that were announced or at least talked about and have been since never made. Growing up might be realizing that it wasn't Kathleen Kennedy's fault, that it wasn't Lucasfilm's fault at all, and that it was Disney's. People have been waking up to the idea that maybe, just maybe, and thanks to the news about the Hunt for Ben Solo and how Bob Iger is the one who shut it down, it might not have been her the entire time. It was Agatha all along, chat. So there's that in this, if somebody is willing to take that risk, because my goodness, have they taken risks with Star Wars over the last 14 years? And those are only the ones that they got okayed. The Mandalorian itself is this enormous risk. The first ever live action show is taking place with a brand new character. They're introducing a baby version of a Yoda species. All of that is an enormous risk. But what she's saying here is that right now, Disney is not willing to take the risk. So if somebody, as she says, somebody is willing to take that risk. What people are forgetting is that, yes, Kathleen Kennedy has stepped down, and we have new leadership at Lucasfilm. Disney is also getting new leadership this year. Bob Iger's contract expires. He is retiring again. He is retiring from Disney, and there will be new leadership at at Disney. So whoever that new leader becomes could be convinced, convinced. I'm kidding. Could be convinced into making a Hunt for Ben Solo movie. Yeah. KK is just stepping down. She's not leaving. Yeah, no, she's not leaving. Yeah. She is not leaving. Not yet, at least. She's going to produce. So this was the big deal. A lot of people who are really excited for the Hunt for Ben Solo, this gets them excited because it is exciting. It's really exciting. There's a full-on script for the Hunt for Ben Solo that's been written by Scott Burns. Soderbergh's on board. Adam Driver's on board. And anything is possible if somebody's willing to take the risk. And then she goes on to talk about, being bold. When she first got the role of president, Bob Iger told her to be bold, which that was in 2012, 2013. So things have changed. Disney has sort of shifted gears to only making guaranteed successes. I mean, we're looking at the Mandalorian and Grogu movie this year. It's supposed to be a guaranteed success. It's their biggest show on Disney Plus by far, and it's, with Grogu involved, their biggest guaranteed success. And when you look at other Disney properties that are coming out, Marvel's making another Avengers movie, guaranteed success. Another Spider-Man movie, guaranteed success. They're making a Toy Story movie. The last two made $1 billion. They're making a Moana live-action remake. The first two movies made billions of dollars. Guaranteed successes. That seems to be the MO of Disney right now. So taking risks like the Hunt for Ben Solo might not be in the cards currently, but who knows how things will change in the somewhat near future. So, guaranteed successes. That's, I suppose, the moral of the story, so to speak. Okay. she goes on to talk about where is this? Okay, this was the one I was looking for. Simon Kinberg. It was revealed 2 years ago. When was this announced? Was that at Star Wars Celebration in 2023? I think it was. Simon Kinberg is writing and producing the next trilogy. Oh, it might have been last year's Star Wars Celebration, actually. Was it in 2025? It might have been. It may have been. So, either way, Simon Kinberg has recently, within the last couple of years, been announced to be getting a trilogy, the next Star Wars trilogy, which for some reason wasn't as big a deal as it should be. Like, people don't talk about this like it's a huge deal. It's a massive deal. We've only ever had 3 trilogies in the entire history of Star Wars, and this is going to be the 4th. That's a huge deal. So, here was the update on Simon Kinberg's trilogy. Kathleen Kennedy said this: he's working right now. He wrote something that we read in August, and it was very good, but not there. Not fully completed, not what they wanted, so they gave him notes and all that great stuff. But it was really good. We've pretty much upended the story and then spent a great deal of time on a treatment, which he has finished literally about 4 weeks ago. So the treatment has been completed. It's a very detailed treatment, like 70 pages. Take a second to think about that. 70 pages, a treatment of the next Star Wars trilogy, meaning that 70 pages includes the plot of the entire first movie, the plot of the entire second movie, and the plot of the entire third movie. A completed story from start to finish. This trilogy will learn from the last, which went from one creator to the next and felt, disconnected in a way. From J.J. Abrams to Rian Johnson, back to J.J. Abrams, it felt like we were jumping back and forth between characters here and there. So with this, with one guy writing the entire treatment, the entire story from start to finish, now we have a completed story that will have arcs throughout the entire trilogy, and it will not feel jumbled. That's what we've been waiting for. So this is great news. That 70-page treatment is an entire story completed from start to finish. Fantastic. He also is expected to give us something in March, so probably a script of some sort, or I'm not quite sure. Whatever that is in March, we shall see. Maybe we get an announcement in March. The most likely place is in August, because we don't have an announcement place until D23, which is in August. So we won't be expecting any sort of big-time announcements from Star Wars until August. I mean, I guess that can change on any random Thursday night, because this Thursday night we got the announcement that, Kathleen Kennedy's gone and Dave Filoni's taken over. So, I don't know. We can literally get Star Wars news on any given day, so I guess, yeah, they'll usually save the bigger stuff for those announcement days. Either way. There was one more paragraph I wanted to get to here. Hang on. Where was it? Nope. Oh, that's where they're talking about Alden Ehrenreich and Han Solo. All that. Okay. Let's get to the 12 movies total. Okay. Let's talk about them. So there are currently, now think about this for a second. This will blow your mind. It blew my mind yesterday. With these 12 movies we're about to talk about, and honestly it's 14 movies, but 12. With these 12 movies we're about to talk about, if you get a Star Wars movie every single year for the next 14 years, that brings you to 2040. 2040 sounds like such a made-up date. It's insane. But yes, 2040 would be where we end off if all 14 of these movies get made. Granted, that might not happen. But either way, if you're thinking about, Star Wars is dying down, There's not enough content, blah, 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 blah. We have only spent the first 50 years, 48 years, the first 48 years of storytelling in Star Wars in the same 80, give or take, years. From The Phantom Menace to The Rise of Skywalker. It's about 80 to 100 years, I think. Somewhere in there. In a galaxy that has over 25,000 years of history before that, and then an infinite amount of years after that, we have barely scratched the surface in the Star Wars universe in terms of storytelling. We haven't touched the Old Republic yet. We haven't gone to the Dawn of the Jedi yet. The Rakatan Empire hasn't been touched with a 10-foot pole in canon. And we haven't gone into the post-sequel world. We will in 2027, but we haven't yet. So if you're thinking that Star Wars is going to stop making content anytime soon, you're crazy. You are absolutely insane. We are going back to the movie theaters this year, and there are 14 different movies in different stages of development that could happen. Meaning we could be getting a Star Wars movie every single year if they all do get made until 2040. That's crazy. Mike, you would be 37. Yeah. That's even crazier. Okay, but let's talk about these movies. So first and foremost, the obvious ones, The Mandalorian and Grogu. That one we know is coming in May. We know that. We know that. We've known that. We've been knowing that. The only thing I can give you for an update for this movie is that we are likely to be getting a trailer at the Super Bowl. I've seen from like probably 20 different sources now, some more reliable than others, but at least 20, that we are getting a trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu at the Super Bowl. So I would say I'm about 99.9% sure that that is true and happening, and that's where we'll see our next big trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Now, we're going to go through all these movies, but first and foremost, of the upcoming Star Wars movies, not just take the shows out of it for a second. Take the animation and the shows and everything else. Just movies. Which Star Wars movie that we're about to talk about are you most excited for? Tell me in the chat. Tell me in the chat. All right, moving on, we got Star Wars Starfighter. Just finished filming about a month ago. It will come out in 2027, starring Ryan Gosling. The more we find out about this movie, the crazier it gets. Lightsaber duels filmed by Tom Cruise. It just gets crazier and crazier every single second we get an update with this movie. But that comes out in 2027. I put these in order of what I think is most likely to get made, most likely to actually happen. So the later we get into this list, the least likely it will happen. So third on the list. Oh, why is that so zoomed in? It's not the REY movie. It's Simon Kinberg's Trilogy. This is the next big thing for Star Wars. The next trilogy. So this, I think, is definitely the third most likely thing to get made. And it's highly likely that we get some sort of big update this year for it, with maybe even a release date of the first movie. Now, what that movie will be called, whether it's Episode 1 or Chapter 1 or Part 1, whatever it may be, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I think this year will be the year that we get some big old announcement in terms of the next Star Wars trilogy. So right now we're at 5 movies. Mando, Starfighter, and a trilogy. 5 movies. I've been seeing a lot of hate for Simon Kinberg online because he was a producer on all the X-Men movies. Now, granted, there's a lot of bad X-Men movies. Like, don't get me wrong. I've seen them all. Dark Phoenix, Apocalypse. There's some bad ones, but there's also some really great ones. I mean, the X-Men movies, there's a reason that we're getting all the X-Men back this year in Avengers Doomsday, because those movies are really, really good. From Days of Future Past to First Class to even X2, is it? No. I think it's X2. Last Stand is the bad one, right? X2 is the good one? Either way, there are good X-Men movies. So it's not just to look at that. My biggest thing when it comes to anybody making Star Wars is, do they have Star Wars experience before? And this guy on the screen right here has the greatest Star Wars experience ever, at least in my personal opinion. And that is that he co-created with Dave Filoni, the new president, by the way, co-created Star Wars Rebels. Me and Samantha are currently still rewatching Star Wars Rebels. Sadly, we are still on season 1. I know we're slacking, but we're getting close to the end of season 1, and it's getting really, really good. Either way, I've always known that Rebels is my favorite Star Wars project. Just the 4 seasons of straight peak. But even on rewatch, it just reaffirms that knowledge. It reaffirms that is by far my favorite Star Wars project. It's just incredible. All the characters I love more than the last. In the storytelling, it's yes, there's filler, especially in season 1, but everything is meaningful towards the next part in the story. The reintroduction of characters like Ahsoka, like Rex, of course, Kanan and all that. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfection. And the fact that this guy right here, who's going to be making our next trilogy, is the guy who co-created that, we're in good hands. I don't give 2 flying shits. I don't know why they're flying. I don't give 2 shits about any X-Men movies because, yes, they are hit or miss time and time again. But when it comes to Star Wars, this guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. So that's why I'm excited. And that, again, puts us to 5 Star Wars movies. Next on this list is the movie that we just read that got an update from Kathleen Kennedy, and that is James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi. She just confirmed to us a few things. One, that the script is done. Mr. Willie Mon, who gave us some of the greatest arcs in Andor, he wrote the One Way Out arc in season 1, and he wrote, I forget which arc in season 2. Maybe the Gorman arc? I forget. Either way, one of the greatest writers from one of the greatest Star Wars shows, Andor, helped James Mangold, who's one of my favorite directors in Hollywood currently, to write Dawn of the Jedi, the origins of the Jedi. Now, the fact that Kathleen Kennedy said it's put on hold could be for a many number of reasons. James Mangold being very busy. I know he's directing some sort of movie right now, and he is on track to direct a DC movie. I'm forgetting which one. So he is a busy guy. I think it's really put on hold, though, because we are not ready for the Dawn of the Jedi. Right now, we are telling the Mandoverse story. We are moving into the post-sequel world. I think when the time is right, we can go to the Dawn of the Jedi. We can go to the Old Republic. And I don't think that's until at least 2028, 9, or even 30. So it'll be a couple years. It will be a couple years. But it has been written. It has been written. So there's that. That's number 6. Number 7 is The Hunt for Ben Solo. The fan campaign for this has been spectacular. I love it. It's Star Wars fans using the power that we have to do something awesome and to get this movie made. The fact that the script is completed, the fact that an Oscar-winning director in Steven Soderbergh is attached, the fact that Adam Driver wants to come back to Star Wars to play Kylo Ren again, or Ben Solo again, and the fact that they spent $3 million to make the script is all an indication that this movie will eventually get made. When it does, I'm not quite sure. It could be a couple of years, could be many, many, many years. I don't know. But I think the likelihood of this movie happening is right with Dawn of the Jedi. It's right with the Simon Kinberg trilogy. It's right up there. So for those people holding out hope for The Hunt for Ben Solo, today is a great day. Today is a great day. Yeah. Once Bob Iger's out, yeah, I mean, Bob Iger's the one who said no to this movie. And yet he's also retiring this year. So things can change pretty quickly. Yeah. Indeed. Don't swear, Mike. My goldfish is with me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I feel so bad now. Your goldfish? I'm so sorry. I will pay for its therapy. I apologize. I apologize. Yeah. Dang. Now I feel bad. Now I just feel bad. You know? I just feel horrible. Okay. Damn. Okay. Continuing. So for the hunt for Ben Solo, for all those people holding out hope for this movie, big old day for you guys, because this is great, great news. And as Kathleen Kennedy put it in that interview, if somebody is willing to take a risk, then they'll make this movie. And Star Wars, as we know, is all about taking risks. From the original trilogy to the prequels into everything that we know and love today. It's all about taking risks. The best Star Wars projects come from taking risks. So if anybody's listening over at Lucasfilm and at Disney specifically, take risks with Star Wars. Sometimes it may not pan out. Sometimes you end up with a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes before the show even releases, like The Acolyte. Sometimes you end up with The Last Jedi, the most divisive Star Wars project of all time. But most of the time, the other 80+% of the time, if you get the right creators, you get the right directors, you get the right writers, it ends up with great stuff. It ends up with the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, The Mandalorian, with greatness like Andor and Rogue One. Take risks. Please. I beg of you. Okay. Hang on 1 second. 1 second, Chad. 1 second, Chad.
Execute Order 66.
You think George Lucas wasn't taking a risk by executing younglings? Killing the entire Jedi Order? Okay. Continuing. So that brings us to Mando, Starfighter, Trilogy, Dawn of the Jedi, and Hunt for Ben Solo. We are at movie number 7 right now with the Hunt for Ben Solo. Moving on, we go to Taika Waititi's Star Wars film. Now, if you asked me this 3 days ago, if this movie was still happening, I would have told you absolutely not. No. But it was announced 6 years ago? I think 6 years ago. Maybe 5. Whatever. 5 or 6 years ago, this movie was announced by Kathleen Kennedy herself. And the same way that I like the Simon Kinberg trilogy idea, because Simon Kinberg made one of the best Star Wars projects of all time, Taika Waititi has had experience working on Star Wars for a long, long time. He's not only the voice of IG-11, but he's also a director of multiple episodes of The Mandalorian. At least in season 1. Does he direct any episodes in season 2? I'm not quite sure. Either way, the update Kathleen Kennedy gave us was that the script is completed and that it's hilarious and great. The fact that the script is completed means that this movie could happen sooner than I thought. Way sooner than I thought. We don't know what's happening with this movie. We don't know when it takes place in the timeline. We don't know much of anything when it comes to Taika Waititi's movie. However, he is another guy who many people always point to Thor: Love and Thunder, but he's also the guy who created Thor: Ragnarok. So he's a guy who, again, outside of Star Wars is hit or miss. Inside of Star Wars, he's all hits with The Mandalorian, specifically. So Taika Waititi's movie, I don't know when it would happen, but this update gives me more hope than I thought. Yeah. As Kevin says, he scares me because he ruined Thor. He also made Thor good. Let's not forget that the first 2 Thor movies were all right at best. The first one was solid. The second one was okay. Maybe. But the Thor movie that's the best, and it's not really even a conversation, is Thor: Ragnarok. And Taika Waititi's the guy who made that. Like, he's the one who made Thor what he is. The badass Thor you see in Infinity War is because of Ragnarok. Yes, he also made Thor Love and Thunder, which is way too goofy, way too over the top. But he also made Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. Okay, continuing. Also along the same lines as this Taika movie, I have number 9 movie on the list, the Lando movie. Kathleen Kennedy's update was that Donald Glover has turned in a script, so the script for this movie is also completed. This movie was also announced at the same time as the Taika movie, so over 5 years ago. Now, my question to you guys is, do you think this movie will ever actually happen? Because it got turned into a show, and then it got turned into a movie, or vice versa. What do we think? Will this movie ever actually happen? I've been seeing a lot of people sort of, because of the backlash towards Solo, a Star Wars story, and the fact that it set up more story to be told. People pushing more now, maybe it's because of the Hunt for Ben Solo stuff, maybe it's because of something else, whatever. More people pushing now for Solo 2 to happen. Make Solo 2 happen. Solo 2 would be the Lando movie. It wouldn't be a Solo 2. They're not going to bring back Alden unless, maybe they do for a cameo in this Lando movie, but there's not really much story to tell with Han after that movie ends, because he ends up where he ends up in the original trilogy. Yes, there's a 10-year gap there, but you don't really need to see what happens. You can sort of infer what goes down from there. With Lando, you could get into how he ends up on Bespin and all this other stuff that would add to the character of Lando. Lando better have Greedo in it. Yeah, you can have a lot of underworld characters. You can have more of the, I guess, smuggler side of things. Let's actually put up a poll. Let's put up a poll. By the way, whoa, this is what I like to see. Lucasfilm, if you're watching, you've made the right decision. This is what I like to see. 84% of you say yes, the Dave Filoni and Lynwen Brennan choices for co-presidents of Lucasfilm was the right decision, and I could not agree with you more. Okay, let's do this. Do you think Lando, or let's go, the Lando movie, will get made? Yes or no? Yes or no? And in the chat, tell me, do you want this movie to get made? Are you eager for a Lando movie? As much as I love Lando as a character in the original trilogy, and his appearance in The Rise of Skywalker is great too. I love me some Billy D. Williams. As much as I love him as a character, Han is a way bigger character than Lando. In the Han Solo movie, did not perform well. Now, that might be for a million different other reasons. However, I don't really see a lot of Star Wars fans, and I guess normie fans, so to speak, going, let me go watch the Lando movie. You know? Maybe if it was a Lando show, I actually think it would work better as a show. So whether it will happen or not, I think it will. I mean, if Donald Glover has turned in a script, I think they're probably en route to making this happen. But I think the smarter move would be to turn it into a show. Absolutely. Oh my, that's a great idea. Because remember, Jabba was a big-time gangster putting a team together? Let Lando be the leader of that heist. A heist movie with Lando? Now you've piqued my interest. A heist movie in Star Wars? Okay, I kind of like that. I take it back. I'm fully on board. I take it back. I'm in. A Lando movie that's a heist movie? I'm in. I'm in. Load up his team with like Bosk and Bosk. you can't really give him Boba Fett because Boba Fett, no disintegrations. Imagine the no disintegrations line comes from a heist with Lando. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a little too excited there. But by the way, this poll is almost 50-50 right now of whether you think this movie's going to happen. All right. Continuing. This gets into a more speculatory place. Because Kathleen Kennedy mentioned there were 3 directors that she has had conversations with that she has talked about making a Star Wars project. Now, these might not all be movies, so to speak, but she did mention these 3 specific directors and that they are in talks to work on a Star Wars project. So, movie numbers 10, 11, 12 on this list are these speculatory, just in conversation phase movies. The first director being David Fincher. Most known for his movies of Seven and Seven. I mean, he also did why am I blanking on the name of this movie? Zodiac. Jesus. Zodiac. He's not in some incredible movies, but Seven is probably his biggest movie with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. So David Fincher coming over to Star Wars would be fan-freaking-tastic. I'll be fully on board this one. You talk about a director with the credits, the credits needed. I'm absolutely for it, 100%. Whatever he wants to do, I'm in. The next one on this list is kind of interesting to me. Vince Gilligan. Give me a 1 into the chat if you know who Vince Gilligan is. A horror film? No. I don't want to go full horror. You can have horror aspects, for example, like Darth Vader snapping people's necks, or, the hallway scene, or him just being scared. There's aspects that you can have horror. Chimere. Chimere's very scary in The Acolyte. They use him in that way, with sort of like, I guess, a jump scare, so to speak, in that 5th episode. You can do that. But to have a fully just horror for horror's sake, no thanks. No thanks. Oh my God, nobody knows who Vince Gilligan is? What the hell's wrong with you, chat? We don't know who Vince Gilligan is? This is crazy. Okay. You guys need to go do your homework. Vince Gilligan is the creator of 2 of the greatest shows of all time. 2 shows that are probably in my top 5 non-Star Wars lists ever. Non-Star Wars shows, that is. And he might be making the 3rd one right now. Like he's making one of the 3rd best shows of all time. So he's a shows guy. If he was to make a Star Wars project, I would assume it would be a show and not a movie, but I don't know. He's the creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And now, most recently, he's the one who created Pluribus, which came out. If you have not watched Pluribus, go watch it. It's awesome. It just came out on Apple TV late in 2025. So the fact that Vince is in talks to come to Star Wars is so cool. I mean, Breaking Bad is a top tier show for pretty much everybody. I mean, it's one of the highest rated IMDb shows ever. And so is Better Call Saul. It's right behind it, and it's a prequel series in that same universe. So there's that. Would be incredible. He has only really worked in television, though, so I think it would be a Star Wars television series, which would be awesome. It would be awesome. Okay, continuing. Last on those 3 in conversation phase directors, we have Alex Garland. Alex Garland did the original, did 28 years later, or 28 days later, sorry. And then he's doing 28 years later, too, which comes out right now, I think. He's also done some other movies like Ex Machina. What else did Garland do? He's another director that, like the other 2 that came before, has a very big filmography of success. So, Star Wars, and what's great about this list, is that Star Wars is still, to this day, the top of the peak of the mountaintop. For directors, for actors, everybody and their dog wants to work on a Star Wars movie or show because it's still the top dog, so to speak. But there's that. So those are the 3 ones that are in conversational phase. Do you guys know the 2 movies I didn't mention? That is 12 movies. Let's go through it again. The Mandalorian and Grogu, Starfighter, Simon Kinberg's Trilogy, The Hunt for Ben Solo, Dawn of the Jedi, Taika Waititi's movie, Lando's movie, a David Fincher movie, a Vince Gilligan movie or show, and an Alex Garland movie, I guess, or show. That is 12. But I said 14 earlier. Do you guys know the 2 that Kathleen Kennedy did not mention? The 2 movies that have been very, very prevalent in recent news. Let's just put it that way. Does anybody know the 2 movies that we did not talk about yet? Garland is so good. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Pluribus is all right. The industry hype around it seemed more groundbreaking than it is. It's not like the greatest show of all time, but I think the idea is that people aren't watching it, and it's really, really good, and you need to watch it. Yeah. And they say Star Wars is dead. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty crazy. The REY movie. Yes, the REY movie is definitely one we did not talk about. It's one that Kathleen Kennedy did not give an update about, which is really, really strange when this movie was originally supposed to be the first theatrical released Star Wars movie after The Rise of Skywalker. Now, this is really strange because just last week we were talking about the update that Daisy Ridley gave us about this movie and about how it's still going great. It'll be worth the wait. And the latest rumors suggest that it's going to start filming in April. So the fact that she just didn't mention this, maybe because it wasn't brought up in the interview, maybe she forgot. I don't think this movie is canceled by any means. Daisy Ridley is already signed back on to be Rey again. I just think that Starfighter needs to come out first. It needs to be the first post-sequel story. And I think Starfighter is going to heavily connect to the Rey movie, too. So that could, whether it's villains or Flynn Gray's character, there will be a connection one way or another. Pluribus is solid, slow burn. Well, yeah, that's what Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul were, too. So I don't think this movie is canceled. It is very strange, however, that she did not mention it. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, I don't think the Rey movie is going to be a Rey movie. Let me clear that up. It's not going to be all about Rey. I don't even think she'll be the main character. She's going to be the Obi-Wan type in A New Hope. So whoever Luke's going to be, whoever Leia and Han are going to be, those characters will likely be introduced in the movie or even possibly in Starfighter. I don't think Rey will be the main character of the quote-unquote Rey movie. Her students will. Yeah. But the Rey movie is definitely one that she did not mention. Do we know the other one that she did not mention? Anybody? Did anybody know? Nobody can think of the last one? I mean, it's just as big as the Rey movie. Just as big. Yeah. Yeah. I love that, Fearless. The warning is great. You keep saying that. She will be the Obi-Wan of the next movie. Yeah. It's more so that she's, I'll put it this way. She could be the Han Solo of the next movie. Han Solo's role in The Force Awakens to Rey as the mentor and maybe even dies in the first movie. I don't know if they'll kill off Rey in her first movie back because they need to, for some people, redeem the character. But only time will tell. I agree with you, Down Bad Annie 69.
I got a bad feeling about this.
That's crazy. That's insane. What a username. Round of applause. Incredible. Incredible. Is Chewie still alive? Yeah. Chewie's absolutely still alive. He gets his medal at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, finally. Finally, somebody guessed it. The Mandoverse movie by Dave Filoni. Not a word. Not a word. Now, this is really strange because here's the thing. Dave Filoni, this movie, by the way, was announced all the way back in 2023, right alongside the REY movie and right alongside Dawn of the Jedi. This movie was announced to be the culmination film of all the Mandoverse projects, bringing together the characters from Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Skeleton Crew to likely take down the big blue meanie, Grand Admiral Thrawn. It would be our Heir to the Empire event. Now, since that announcement in 2023, things have changed. Things have changed quite drastically because The Mandalorian and Grogu got announced a year after this. So I think the entire playbook for what was going to go down with the Heir to the Empire changed. And I think Lucasfilm realized that they could make a trilogy in between the originals and the sequels. And that trilogy could be The Mandalorian and Grogu, then Dave Filoni's movie, and then a final big battle, Avengers Endgame type versus Thanos, but the Thanos being Grand Admiral Thrawn, and all of our heroes coming together in that final battle, being the Heir to the Empire. Now, I don't know if that's still the plan. I think a lot of it rides on whether or not The Mandalorian and Grogu is a success or not. But all that to say, this movie not being mentioned is very strange to me. Yes, he's making Ahsoka Season 2, and that doesn't come out until later this year. But if it's going to be a trilogy and Dave Filoni's the one making the second movie in the trilogy, it most likely will come out in 2028. Because if the first movie in the trilogy comes out in 2026, there'll be a year gap in between, just like they did with the sequels. Now, maybe they'll go back to how it was with the prequels and the originals and do 2 years in between, but I don't see that happening. The attention spans of today's world in 2026 have gotten smaller, not larger, so to expand that time between movies would be, I think, the wrong decision. So there's the 14 movies. 14. Absolutely insane. Heir to the Empire needs to be a movie. Oh, I could not agree more. That's why I think Ahsoka Season 2, as great as it's going to be, Thrawn is going to be an afterthought. Well, let me take that back. He won't be the main villain. Abeloth or whatever is in that prison on Peridia will be the main villain, and Thrawn will be the side mission, so to speak. He will be the Morgan Elsbeth of the season. I don't think he'll die by the end of it, but he will be the side villain. And he will only become the main villain when he gets his own movie or Dave Filoni gets his own movie. Yeah. So 14 movies. Let's go through it one more time. Mandalorian and Grogu, Starfighter, and this is from most likely to happen to least likely to happen. Mandalorian and Grogu, Starfighter, Simon Kinberg's trilogy, the REY movie, Dave Filoni's movie, Hunt for Ben Solo, Dawn of the Jedi, Taika Waititi's movie, the Lando movie, and then Vince Gilligan project, David Fincher project, and Alex Garland project. 14 Star Wars films. All, some most likely to happen, some maybe will never happen. Either way, when you look to the future of Star Wars movies, we're going to be on the big screen for a long, long time. This is the return this year in 2026, but we're not going away anytime soon. It's not just going to be a 5-year stay on the big screen and then going back to Disney Plus forever. We're going to be staying on the big screen at least once a year for the foreseeable future. And that's got me pretty damn excited. Yeah. Mike just compared Thrawn to Morgan Elsbeth. No, not in like, okay. In story, I guess in plot devices. Morgan Elsbeth was like the villain of season 1, but not the main villain. That's more so what I mean. As a character, yeah, they're not even comparable. Yeah. You think they'll make a Heir to the Empire movie and then followed by Dark Force Rising in The Last Command? I don't know if they'll do that. I don't know. I just don't know. I hope they do, because it would really just be like,
This is where the fun begins.
But if the trilogy is starting with The Mandalorian and Grogu, then it's not going to continue to be 4 movies. So it'd only be 3. And I feel like when you talk about the Heir to the Empire trilogy, the Legends trilogy following Thrawn, you always say Heir to the Empire. Never really, you don't call it the Last Command trilogy. You don't call it the Dark Force Rising trilogy. You call it the Heir to the Empire trilogy. So that's more of a, I guess, known name in the Star Wars world that they should call the movie if they are going to do that. But insane. In a week where I thought the craziest news was going to be Tom Cruise filming a lightsaber fight scene in Starfighter, Kathleen Kennedy, stepping down was one thing, but her giving us an update on 12 different Star Wars movies is a completely different thing. The fact that she's going to stick around and be a producer is huge, is enormous, is good news, Mark. If you know, you know. Now, I do have some, and I know we started the stream on a down note. I was yelling about how already you're seeing so many people come after Dave Filoni. It's only been 48 hours. And yes, that comes with the position. You're going to have haters. You're going to have people, crapping all over him and talking about how he hates Andor, and even though none of it's true, and ruining the credibility of those people. You have now news that comes out that can't be taken seriously anymore because of the sources. What do I mean by that? Hang on. Can I get some good cups full of orders in the chat, please, first? Bum, bum. So, we got some news today about, and I always butcher his last name, but Rick Famuyima? Our boy Rick, who, of course, has been literally irreplaceable when it comes to Star Wars. He is, if it's Dave and John, who are the duo making The Mandalorian and the Mandoverse, Rick is like the number 3. Rick is that the third guy. He is like, if it's Anakin and Obi-Wan, he's Ahsoka. He's directed countless episodes of The Mandalorian and even other spin-off shows like Book of Boba Fett and whatever. And he's been involved in so much of it. And there was rumors that he was going to be getting his own show. Let me show you this. So this article just dropped today, actually. Take a look at this. Rick Famuyima. I don't even know. I apologize, Rick. I'm just going to call you Rick from now on. Is that okay? Okay, great. Thanks. Love you, Rick. Rick is developing a Star Wars series that is now in limbo. Limbo. Buried in the editorials from The Wrap critiquing Kathleen Kennedy's legacy as Lucasfilm as she hands the reins of the franchise off to 2 executives in new information about Disney Plus's projects tied to both Star Wars and Indiana Jones. One of the biggest reveals in that piece was that Rick Famuyima, one of the executive producers of The Mandalorian, had developed a series for Disney Plus that has not been greenlit. Now, here's what I was talking about before. Oh, you guys can't see that. Here's what I was talking about before. The people who wrote the article about, yes, critiquing Kathleen Kennedy's reign as legacy at Lucasfilm, which is one thing. But they also wrote their article about Dave Filoni and him disliking Andor, even though that's just not anywhere close to the truth. Those people, the article that came from is the Wrap. So now it's really hard to read this article and take anything that they say seriously because of their blatant lie about Dave Filoni. Just to get clicks, just to take down the new president, just for fun, just to be a hater. It's hard. So there could be some validity to this, which is why we're reading it, because I hope that Rick gets his own series. He's been directing the Mando episodes for forever and been a huge producer and part of that show. It's like how we've been talking about Bryce Dallas Howard should be getting her own series or movie. It's like how Deborah Chow got the Kenobi series. These people who are working right underneath John and Dave are the ones who we would trust the most because they've had so much experience with Star Wars. They've been involved in creating the live-action series on Disney+. So Rick would be another one. Yeah. Famuyima is how I've heard it pronounced. Famuyima? Famuyima. Yeah. I just don't really like pronouncing names incorrectly, even though I do it all the time because I'm the worst at pronouncing anything. So I'm just going to call him Rick. Sound good? Sound good. Okay. Sounds fantastic. All right, continuing. The Wrap reported that Rick was set to executive produce a Star Wars Disney Plus show, but that project is now in limbo. That wording implies that the series could be picked up, but it appears that that is functionally encased in carbonite at this time. Nice. Since Disney has changed their priorities for streaming, as Tony Gilroy has told us that streaming is dead, and they're clearly focusing now with 14 different Star Wars movies in different forms of development. They're shifting their focus back to the big screen. Rick almost did it, was promoted to executive producer on all episodes of the third season of The Mandalorian, on top of being directly involved with creative processes on all 3 seasons of the show as a director, writer, and even guest actor, playing Jib Dodger, an X-Wing pilot working with the New Republic, where you see Dave Filoni. I think Rick and Deborah were also at that same bar. So a bunch of the directors are in Star Wars. He also directed directed Ahsoka season 1 finale. So again, this guy's been there for quite some time. He has the credits. So it is within reason that his unmade series may have also been related to the set of characters introduced into live action in the Mandoverse. It could be some sort of Rangers of the New Republic type deal. I don't think he was going to make Rangers. Jon Favreau was going to make Rangers, but some sort of spin-off like that. Possibly a Mando show. Could be like a Bo-Katan spin-off Mandalorians type show. I don't know if it's been, it could be many number of things. Could be Skeleton Crew season 2 for all we know, or Book of Boba Fett season 2. But further away from the galaxy far, far away, there were also some ambiguous plans for an Indiana Jones thing on streaming services that never fully materialized. Indiana Jones, honestly, I didn't even watch the 5th one. I've seen the first 4. It should have ended after 3. Some things don't need to continue. Indiana Jones is not a universe like the MCU or like Star Wars or like Star Trek or like any big universe like Harry Potter. It's not that kind of thing. It's specifically a story about one guy, and that guy's Indiana Jones. So maybe the 5th one was pretty good. I didn't watch it. I don't know. However, it doesn't really seem likely that a continuation in any sort of show or animation or whatever would be the smart move, because Indiana Jones is Indiana Jones. And without that character, it's not really the same thing. But that is what they're talking about there. We'll continue because that's not Star Wars related. The news followed. Kathleen Kennedy provided updates on multiple scripts, blah, blah, blah. And Rick's was not mentioned. So there you have it. Again, coming from a source that was just absolutely ripping on Star Wars, specifically Dave Filoni, with lies. It's hard to believe anything they say, but Rick getting a show or even just being an executive producer on a show could still be the case. Yeah. The fifth one was not good, but better than the fourth. Okay. Yeah, that fourth one was tough. Tough indeed. Should have ended it after 3. You know what's really good, Chet? Water. Water. That Indiana Jones 5 was Kathleen Kennedy's idea. I don't know if that to be true. However, it's another one of those quote-unquote guaranteed successes. Disney probably looked at their brands that they own and go, what can we make money on? Harrison Ford. He's a big-time actor. Let's make another Indiana Jones movie. It seems like a stretch to go get more money. It's not a risk by any means. It's a guaranteed success. And actually, it was not guaranteed because it lost money, or it didn't lose money, but it did not make a lot of money. No, it did not. No, it did not. So all that to say, I really hope that Rick is involved. Maybe he's involved in Ahsoka Season 2. I'm not quite sure if we know about directors yet. But, well, actually, we do know about directors, and I don't think he's on that list. Because we know Bryce Dallas Howard has 2 episodes. Yeah, I don't think he's on the list. Okay. I appreciate the hearts, guys. I really do. Yeah, so hopefully Rick is involved in some Star Wars project in the somewhat near future, but only time will tell. That report says it's in limbo. Limbo. All right, so now that we talked about all those 14 different Star Wars movie projects, let's talk about the gigantic elephant in the room. The fact that a lot of projects from the Kathleen Kennedy era of Star Wars were announced and canceled for 1,000,000,001 different reasons, but it is the truth. A lot of announced projects never happened. So this article actually goes into it perfectly in what needs to change at Lucasfilm, because we just talked about an update for 12 different Star Wars movies from Kathleen Kennedy herself, all in different stages of production, but still. When it comes to Star Wars, there's just one thing we need from Lucasfilm's new presidents. Stop announcing movies and start actually making them again. Now, this has already happened. Let's give credit where credit is due. This has already happened. Mandalorian and Grogu comes out in 4 months. Star Wars Starfighter comes out next year. Like, there's already films that have been filmed. Cool, Will. What's up? I appreciate that. But we need movies made. In case you missed the news, there's a seismic shift. Nice. Going on at Lucasfilm right now. Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down as president of Lucasfilm after 14 years. She'll be replaced by 2 executives in Dave Filoni and Lynwen Brennan, the longtime Lucasfilm veterans. This is certainly a huge deal for Star Wars fans. Kathleen Kennedy has been steering the starship since Disney first acquired Lucasfilm in 2012, and she has been in charge through the new era of films and the expansion into live-action streaming shows. What does this mean for the future of Star Wars? It's a little early to say. It's only been 2 days, so it's a little early to say. But we know one thing that needs to change immediately. Lucasfilm needs to stop announcing new Star Wars movies and start committing to actually making them a reality. Star Wars needs to find a clear roadmap again after years of chaos and misdirection. It's not just movies, though. It's shows as well. Rangers of the New Republic, The Droid's Tales. There's certain projects that were announced that just never happened. Now, granted, Lando, but I guess we got an update on that. Granted, they after Ahsoka Season 2, we don't have a single project that's even announced. So that's a big deal, too. We don't even have a single project that's announced. So maybe they are doing that. They're not announcing anything unless it's ready to go or being directed or already in the works. Because after Ahsoka Season 2, there's nothing. Nothing. The rise and fall of Star Wars under Kathleen Kennedy. Here we go. There can be no denying that Kathleen Kennedy's tenure as president of Lucasfilm was marked by some major successes. Again, I said this at the beginning of the live stream. Cannot deny the success that has been had in the last 14 years as Star Wars as a brand. She took the reins of the franchise, whose biggest days many assumed were behind it, following the conclusion of George Lucas's prequel trilogy. Instead, Kathleen Kennedy helped pave the way for a completely new era of Star Wars movies and expanded the Skywalker saga decades into the future, with spin-offs like Rogue One and Solo to even live-action shows like Mando. Star Wars: The Force Awakens was an unmitigated success, shattered box office records, and appealed to a huge swath of moviegoers. I know there's always the argument that, there's the kid from a desert planet, there's a giant space station that needs to be destroyed. One of the main characters destroys it. There's a big battle scene. There's a lightsaber duel. I just described to you The Phantom Menace, A New Hope, and The Force Awakens. The beginning of every single trilogy has pretty much the same arc. Now, is that repetitive? Sure. Is it still awesome and great? Yeah. Setting up a stormtrooper who could become a former stormtrooper who becomes a Jedi is a great setup for a character. Rey's setup, perfect. Kylo Ren's setup, amazing. He's literally praying to a Vader mask. Snoke's setup, awesome. So there's a lot of great setup in in The Force Awakens, and to me, it's the next two movies that sort of make that worse. And it made $2.2 billion. Like, it made a shit ton of money. Sorry, Goldfish. It made a lot of money. It made a lot of money. Damn it, I'm killing Goldfish over here. Damn.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Okay, continuing. The entire sequel trilogy remains one of the highest grossing series of all time. It's actually the second highest grossing trilogy ever, behind only Avatar. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, showed the potential in projects that venture away from the Skywalker clan with Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor. And perhaps most notably, Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm finally proved that Star Wars can work in live-action TV format, something even Lucas had hard-pressed to accomplish. We know George was making his 1313 series, and so there was a live-action series at least in the works at some point. The Mandalorian spawned a whole new wave of live-action shows, including the critically acclaimed, that is Star Wars Andor. I haven't said that in a long time. Critically acclaimed. Hashtag save the goldfish. Hashtag save the goldfish. Okay, continuing. But for all those successes, Kathleen Kennedy's tenure became increasingly marred, as time went on. The sequel trilogy may have been largely successful from a financial standpoint, but good luck finding a Star Wars fan who actually likes all three movies. There you go. The lack of a coherent, overarching direction for the trilogy and the diminishing returns in box office speak for themselves. 2018 Solo: A Star Wars Story underwhelmed critically and commercially, and even Kathleen Kennedy herself labeled it as one of her regrets with the franchise. A lot of things had to do, yes, with the movie itself, but replacing Harrison Ford, that's always a big deal. Recasting a legacy character, which many of you want to happen with Luke, Leia, and Han, which it's a big deal, and I still don't think it should happen. And the fact that it was going up against Infinity War and just, a million other things. And as 2026 dawns, It's now been over 6 years since a new Star Wars film has hit theaters, although that does change this year. It hasn't been entirely rosy on the streaming front either. The initial fever over The Mandalorian has cooled in light of the most divisive Season 3, which I still think is overhated. It's not as good as the first 2 seasons, but it's still overhated. And Lucasfilm seems to be cutting back on new live-action streaming shows, just as it becomes increasingly cautious on the theatrical front. The Acolyte, the second most divisive project of all time, and the first Star Wars series to be canceled due to its low ratings, came into before having seen any episode. Star Wars fans had turned it into a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes before having seen a single frame from the show, single scene. I guess in the trailers, but you know what I mean. A single episode. 10 years ago, who would have imagined that there wouldn't be an automatic built-in audience for a live-action Star Wars show? That is kind of crazy. It's painfully clear that there's been a waning of enthusiasm surrounding the Star Wars franchise in recent years. I kind of disagree, at least in the conversations that I'm in with Star Wars fans like yourselves and the people who love Star Wars. And even I think the thing is, normie fans, they don't watch a lot of television. So when they see that there's like 10 series that they need to watch, they're like, okay, that's too much. I'm not going to do it. I'm not committing weeks and weeks of my life to go watch all this Star Wars content when I'm just a normie fan. So I think going back to the movie theaters will show a very different audience, Star Wars again, which will be good. Certainly not all the blame can be laid on Kathleen Kennedy's feet, but perhaps the great defying flaw of the Kennedy era is that Lucasfilm doesn't seem to quite know how to respond to this lack of Star Wars enthusiasm. Yes and no. It's become a running joke over the years that Lucasfilm is very fond of announcing new Star Wars movies and then never getting around to actually making them. As we talked about today, 3 movies that were announced 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, that have not made any movement. The Dave Filoni movie, James Mangold's movie, and the REY movie. It's become a running joke over the years, but we just said that. At various points, we were supposed to be getting a Rian Johnson-helmed trilogy, an Old Republic series from Game of Thrones showrunners Dave and Dan, and even a movie from Marvel's bigwig Kevin Feige. All those projects are dead now. They're gone. Then there is many announced projects that have fallen into quiet limbo land. The James Mangold Dawn of the Jedi, Taika Waititi's movie, Donald Glover's Lando movie, and Rogue Squadron, Patty Jenkins' movie. We did get an update on a bunch of those movies, but not Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron movie. And I actually forgot about that. So I guess movie number 15, which supposedly is in the works, is Rogue Squadron. And that doesn't even get into the numerous times directors have been replaced on films that actually moved forward, like Phil Lord and Chris Miller on Solo, or Colin Trevorrow on The Rise of Skywalker, and of course more. It's gotten to the point where it's impossible to feel excited about a new Star Wars announcement because the inevitable first question is always, what's the likelihood that this thing actually comes out? Ironically, the poll in the chat right now is, do you think the Lando movie will actually happen? Do you think the Lando movie will actually get made? It is a big question. Whenever these movies get announced, the question is, will it actually happen? And it's not until we are in a place where they've filmed it. Like with Star Wars Starfighter, we're excited now because they filmed it. We know it's coming. With The Mandalorian and Grogu, we're excited now because it's coming. With these other projects, it's hard to get as excited because we don't even know if they'll get made. It's not wrong. And by the way, this is 53% of you saying no, you don't think the Lando movie will get made. Okay, continuing. Will this actually come out? And as you can see, the odds aren't great, even with projects that seem to be in active development, like Dave Filoni's Mandoverse New Republic movie, the Heir to the Empire movie, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's new REY movie, or New Jedi Order movie, and Simon Kinberg's Trilogy. It's an open question as to whether those will see the light of day. Until the cameras start rolling and we have actual footage, it's safer to assume the worst because you won't get disappointed. The sense of uncertainty and the consistent pivoting have come to define Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm in recent years. And that's exactly what needs to change for Dave Filoni and Lynwen Brennan as they take the helm. So a lot of truth to this article. Absolutely. We just talked about 14 different Star Wars movies that are all in different phases of development. Will they all happen? Probably not. That's why I put them in order of most likely to least likely. But all that to say, they should stop announcing stuff before they actually have something ready to film. I get that, like at Star Wars Celebration, you want something to be a big announcement for the movie front, but they haven't made a movie in 6 years. Well, I guess they are now, but you know what I mean? They hadn't made a movie for 6 years, so why even announce them if you're not ready to go? Specifically the REY movie. The REY movie was not ready to go at all, and they announced it anyway. So I think, as we look back at that list, Simon Kinberg trilogy is definitely happening. They've already written a treatment. They've already still writing whatever. Dawn of the Jedi will eventually happen. Script already written. Stuff that's already been done and finished, it could still be put on the shelf for a long time, but I think it will actually happen. Stuff like the Kevin Feige movie. Stuff like possibly the Vince Gilligan, the Alex Garland, the David Fincher. All that is just speculatory right now. It's all just in conversation. There's no script written. They're not ready to film. There's nothing of that sort ready to go. So I think it's far more likely that those movies do not happen. Yeah. So there's that. But all this to say, we are sitting here on January 17th of 2026, 17 years into the new year, and we are living it up as Star Wars fans. The news has been insane this year, and it's going to continue to be insane. We're getting Maul Shadow Lord later. We're getting the Mandalorian and Grogu, Ahsoka Season 2. It truly is the greatest time to be a Star Wars fan. If you were sick and tired of the Kathleen Kennedy regime, it's gone. And now we have Dave Filoni and Lynwen Brennan. I think Kathleen Kennedy did a extraordinary job with Lucasfilm over the last 14 years. Just in terms of the peak Star Wars content that I got to watch over the last 14 years. Yes, there's been divisive content. The sequel trilogy, the Acolyte, I get it. It's there. There's no denying that. There's no denying that there was projects announced that got canceled. But that's always been how it happens. 1313. Canceled. It's not always the nicest business, that's for sure. And Kathleen Kennedy gets all the crap. But as she becomes a producer again, we'll see how that changes. And I'm sure, as we've already talked about, Dave Filoni in the first 48 hours of being co-president has been hit with false allegations of hating Andor. You can't make this stuff up. It's literally laughable, like the things that they just come up with just for fun. Like, I've already seen 20 videos of Dave Filoni talking about how much he loves Star Wars. I mean, loves Andor.
Gilroy did a version of the Empire and Tony Gilroy did a version of the Empire that's like it's like the most THX awesome evil thing I've ever seen. And so I love all that, and that's inspiring. We inspire each other. It's a big collective effort at Lucasfilm, and I think it's all building in a great direction. So it's not just one thing we're doing. I'm glad people like Ahsoka, but there's so much out there.
So yeah, there's that. There's oh, and by the way, the post was deleted because they were so ashamed of being wrong, straight up lying to people. So they deleted it. And then I love this one. In 2005, Dave Filoni dressed up as Plo Koon for the opening of Revenge of the Sith and gave out candy to kids waiting in line for watching the film. By the way, a little creepy there. The whole kids thing. It's, don't take candy from strangers unless he's dressed up as Plo Koon. So Star Wars is in great hands. He literally was working on a Plo Koon costume in his garage when he got the call to come work on Star Wars. Yeah. Okay. There's stuff like that. So we're in good hands. We've known this. The people who love Star Wars have known this, how great Dave Filoni has been. But yeah, stuff like this too.
You look at you're dealing with Cassian Andor's struggles about doing the right thing and being a better person.
Like, he talks about Andor so often, especially when it was coming out, I guess, and how great it was and how much he loved it. So to make a full article about how he disliked it is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So there's that. I want to end the stream on a list. We always love these lists. This one comes from Screen Rant, which is even better. So this is the Screen Rant list of every live-action Star Wars movie and show produced under Kathleen Kennedy, ranked from worst to best. Okay? So we're going to go from best to worst. At number 1, they have Andor. Pretty solid list. I mean, Andor is up there. It's 100% up there. While we do this, guys, you give me your top 3 at least in the chat. Top 3 live-action movies or shows that have been in the last 14 years. At number 2. See if I can scroll up without revealing the whole list. I did it. At number 2 is The Last Jedi. There will be some conversation there. I know people who love The Last Jedi love it. They think it's one of the greatest Star Wars projects to ever be created, and I get that. But I'm not the biggest fan, so that would not be my number 2. But Andor is number 1. Last Jedi, number 2. Number 3, Rogue One. Honestly, that's tough. That's tough. Rogue One, live action shows and movies in the last 14 years might be number 1. It might be. That's tough. Okay. But there's that. Rogue One at 3. At 4 is The Mandalorian. Valid. Season 1 and 2 being peak, of course, and Season 3 having a drop-off, but still very, very good. At number 5, The Force Awakens. I'm a lot higher on The Force Awakens than most, so I'd have it pretty high up there, too. I'll make my list after we looked at the whole thing. 6 is Skeleton Crew. High praise for the Skeleton Crew. I like it. I like it. At number 7, is Solo. All right. I think Solo is extremely underrated, but 7's kind of high. At number 8 is Ahsoka. This list blows. Ahsoka would be number 1 on my list. Yeah. I forgot about that for a second. Kenobi's number 9. The Acolyte's number 10. Book of Boba Fett's number 11. And The Rise of Skywalker's number 12. Okay. So, what I would change with this list, the top tier of the list, I'd put it in tiers, I guess. Top tier of the list would be Rogue One, Andor, Mando, Ahsoka. That's the top tier. The next tier would be stuff like The Force Awakens, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, and The Acolyte, and Skeleton Crew. Yeah, I guess. That's tough. Oh, all right. Let's put it in an order, I guess. At number 1, I'm going to go Ahsoka. No, I'm not. 3 seasons of The Mandalorian is better than 1 season of Ahsoka. So I'm going The Mandalorian. Then I'll go Ahsoka. Then I'll go Andor. So 1, 2, 3. Then I'll go Rogue One. Even though I don't like that, I'll do it anyway. It's so tough. Okay, those are the top 4 in no particular order. They could all be interchanged on the day I'm having. We'll put it that way. Then at number 5, I'll go The Force Awakens. At number 6, I'll go... Oh, that's tough. Kenobi. I'll go Kenobi. That finale speaks for itself, but I just recently rewatched it, and it was a lot better than I remember. So at 6, I'll go Kenobi. At 7, I'll go The Acolyte. The Acolyte as a whole is better than the Book of Boba Fett in parts, because the Book of Boba Fett in parts is probably better. No. Episode 5 of The Acolyte is better than any episode of Book of Boba Fett, except for maybe From the Desert Comes a Stranger. Then I'll go to the Book of Boba Fett. Then I'll go Skeleton Crew. Then I'll go Solo. Then I'll go The Last Jedi. And then I'll go Rise of Skywalker. That's my list. Subject to change. Yeah. But needless to say, this doesn't even add in the animation side of things, where you have Rebels, and this is just, again, under Kathleen Kennedy's reign. You have Rebels, The Bad Batch, Tales, Clone Wars Season 7, peak on peak, on peak, on peak. We eat so good as Star Wars fans, and it's like we forget it. It's literally like we forget it. But all that to say, a new crown has been placed on the heads of Dave Filoni and Lynwen Brennan as presidents of Lucasfilm. What a day. What a day. Well, the news just keeps on coming. So we'll, of course, be here every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for the rest of your lives. Watch out for a short in about an hour. And yeah, crazy times. Crazy times. Let me end this poll, by the way. 53% of you say no, you don't think the Lando movie will happen. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. With 66 votes on that. Nice. Order 66.
Execute Order 66.
All right. But until next time, smash a freaking like on this stream if you have not already. Hit that subscribe and hit that bell so you'll get notified every time I post a video, and my pretty face will show up on the recommended feed of yours. Go check out the video I did breaking down the entirety of this news in a very nice, concise 11-minute video. Go check that out if you have not already. And yeah. Until next time, if you want to keep the conversation going, go join the Discord. There's a link in the description below to a Discord called The People Who Love Star Wars. Go join that. May the Force be with you. Always. Oh, yeah. What a great stream. What a great show. You guys are the absolute best. I appreciate you all so much more than you'll ever know. This was quite the live stream. We almost went for 2 hours today. We haven't done that in a while. I mean, the news was big. That's for damn sure. How many of these movies do you really think that will get made? Of the 14, I'd say the trilogy at least gets made. Mando and Starfighter, obviously, so that's 5. Eventually, Dawn of the Jedi will be made. I don't know when, but it will. So that's 6. Hunt for Ben Solo, I think, will definitely get made. That's 7. REY movie, 100%. 8. Dave Filoni's movie, definitely 9. I'd say at least 9. The other ones is where it gets shaky. Lando, Taika Waititi's movie, that gets shaky. But 9 for sure. For sure. So at least the next decade of Star Wars will be filled in the movie theaters. But until next time, hope you have a great rest of your evening. Great rest of your lives. And good night, everybody.